it's important that we're honest about what's happening, and companies definitely have a lot of stress. They're being very reactive right now. There's a tremendous amount of uncertainty, and there's been a real shock to the system, to all systems. There's been, a shock to our, mental state, but there's been a shock to the economic system, to the supply chains, to the way that people are behaving and our buying trends. We're in crisis response through and through right now.
Welcome to Grow Think Tank. This is the one and only place where you will get insight from the founders and the CEOs of the fastest growing privately held companies. I am the host. My name is Gene Hammett. I help leaders and their teams navigate the defining moments of their growth. Are you ready to grow? Crisis leadership. Right now, you have to think differently, you have to show up differently for your team, and you have to lead sales and marketing differently than you did just a month ago. This is an unprecedented time, full of uncertainty, and the things that you have been doing just won't work anymore. When you think about being a crisis leader, you have to take a step back from what's really going on, get some perspective. Today, we're going to do that. Our guest is Angelique Rewers. She is the founder of The Corporate Agent. They help solo entrepreneurs, smaller companies, boutique offerings, and mid-markets really create the momentum they need by getting corporate clients. We talked to her specifically about sales and marketing and what that means inside of today's crisis with coronavirus or COVID-19. Whatever you want to call it, things are different. Crisis leadership is necessary. Some of the things we unpack is what has to change in your lead generation in order to navigate through the next few months. What will happen after that? What has to change in your sales strategy? And she gets really specific about some of the specific things that you have to look at and change inside your own company and maybe even the way you sell. And finally, we wrap this up with what has to change in your leadership style. So all of this in today's episode on Grow Think Tank. Before we get there, I want to ask you a question. Are your frontline leaders prepared to lead through today's crisis? Are they prepared to really come up with the critical decisions to lead their team members to the next level through this crisis? You may be prepared. You may have confidence and courage, but the frontline leaders, how are you supporting them? Well, if you're not asking yourself that question, you probably should be. We've put together a special training. Me and my team have been working behind the scenes about how to lead frontline leaders through this. We will look at the 5 mistakes that you can avoid as an executive leader so that you can actually create frontline leaders that will help you through this crisis and beyond. To sign up for that, just go to genehammett.com/webinar. Inside that, you'll get those 5 mistakes so that you can avoid them and become the leader that your team deserves. Create stronger frontline leaders. Go to genehammett.com/webinar. Before we dive into the interview, I wanted to remind you that you can actually get a tool that I've been working with clients with for the last couple of years. I've refined this tool that's gone through several iterations. Now we have it completely automated. You can actually go online and fill out the leadership quiz. To get the leadership quiz, just go to theleadershipquiz.com. That's pretty easy, right? Theleadershipquiz.com. What you will get when you do that is you will answer a few questions. You will see where you rate based on the core principles of fast growth companies. If you're ready to grow your company or you want to see where you are, then make sure you go to theleadershipquiz.com. Inside it, you will get insight to where you are, understand where you want to improve, and you will get them mapped into the 10 areas that are most specific to fast growth companies. Again, go to theleadershipquiz.com and you can get that right now. Now here's the interview with Angelique. Hi, Angelique. How are you?
I am awesome.
Well, we go way back and you've been on the show before.
No, actually, this is my first time with you on this show.
On the new show, but you've been
on the new show. Yes, on the new show. True.
Well, I want our audience to know exactly who you are. I've already introduced you at a personal level, but tell us about The Corporate Agent.
Yeah, can you believe it? We are celebrating 10 years this year. We had a completely different plan for the year than the one we are currently executing on. But for the last 10 years, we have worked with small businesses and mid-market companies of all sizes to help them strategize and gain entry into corporate clients, and then grow those accounts and keep those corporate clients. So everything we do is about helping those small business owners get into corporate clients.
Well, I know that I first saw you speak a few years ago about corporate clients, and you have so much depth around this and passion for it. Why are you so passionate about corporate clients?
Couple of reasons. I mean, one, I really do believe in my heart of hearts that it is corporate companies that change the world by and large. Just look at the impact that Amazon and Facebook and Delta and the big oil companies have on our world, right? So they're the ones that really shape the world more than anything. And so when we're able to get innovative small companies inside of those corporations and really change them from the inside out, it has just a profound ripple effect in the world. And then the other side of it is just a little bit more pragmatic. And that is that corporate clients completely change the economics for a small business or a mid-market company. When you have those bigger accounts, you're talking about more visibility into your pipeline, much exponentially bigger lifetime value of your clients, predictability, even everything down to securing finances for your company. If you go into a bank and you show them that you have contracts with major brands, they're going to be much more comfortable, even if they don't necessarily understand what your startup or your fast growing Inc. 500 company does. They're going to say, well, you have contracts with Ford and GM and American Airlines and Coca-Cola, so we feel more confident in giving you this money. So there's very practical reasons for it, but then there's from the sort of fire starter in me of just knowing the kind of positive impact we can have on the world when we're shaping the way that these big companies think and act in the world.
So I want to set the table here, because had we recorded this a month ago, we would have talked about something completely different.
Yeah, indeed.
And today we are a couple of weeks into the national, kind of quarantine almost. When you think about that from a business perspective, I mean, things are changed, and I know some people take offense to the words that we use. We're in crisis, we're in recession, and things like that. How would you describe where we are today in a business sense?
Oh yeah, I mean, let's be very real about it. We are absolutely in a crisis response mode. There's just no two ways about it. I'm not very apologetic for using that term, crisis response, because it's important that we're honest about what's happening. And companies definitely have a lot of stress. They're being very reactive right now. There's a tremendous amount of uncertainty, and there's been a real shock to the system, to all systems. There's been, a shock to our, mental state, but there's been a shock to the economic system, to the supply chains, to the way that people are behaving and our buying trends. We're in crisis response through and through right now.
Hold on for a second. Angelique just talked about companies being reactive. If that's you, if you are in a place where you're reacting from a place of fear, or maybe just scrambling to just keep your head above the water, I would like to offer you something. Now, you may not understand this, but I'd love to offer you something that a client of mine said the other day when we were talking. I said, what are you focused on as you lead your team to the next level? And he said, calm minds prevail. Don't always think that you have to react and know the answer to everything. Go into every situation with a calm mind. Really think and step back from this, but be willing to make those decisions and stand behind them. That's really important as you move forward in this time of need for your team. Now back to the interview. When you think about marketing and sales, because I really see you as helping companies understand the strategies behind growth, and that marketing and sales is such an important piece to it. There are many changes that have happened. Like conferences are being canceled. You and I both speak at conferences, so you've probably had things canceled as well as I have. What should companies be looking at now with that sales and marketing perspective of how to prepare for this next stage of work?
Yeah, there's really three things. I mean, the first is understanding from a lead generation perspective, and this is so important for your marketing and your sales teams to understand, is that proximity is still power. Just because we've lost the in-person conferences that are out there, we have to understand that, it's all about proximity. If you think that, you're going to really make inroads on lead generation, getting buried under social media. In fact, the noise level on social has just gone through the roof because everyone's stuck at home, right? So number one, you've got to figure out, how are we going to get proximity right now? And especially if a lot of the channels, if you're doing trade shows, if you were having customer meetings. I mean, a lot of, fast growing Inc. companies out there have annual client meetings. We were just getting ready to help about a $200 million company to do their annual customer meeting. That obviously went up in smoke. So you've got to figure out how are we going to get proximity. Then the second problem really is around, how are we going to meet them where they are? And that's probably the biggest mistake that companies are making right now, that they're not shifting. What they're trying to do is they're trying to shove, a square peg into a round hole. They're trying to take what they normally do and normally sell and kind of shove it down the throats of their customers. I read this article today. It sort of, sent me into a rant, because they were talking, Gene, about, this is how you can prove the value of what you do. Just state these, ROI facts to them and prove the value of what you do. And we're in a new hierarchy of needs for companies. They are in crisis mode, crisis response, and they're in survival. So if you think you can take what you were doing and try to, prove to them, convince them why they should still keep spending money on it, but it doesn't actually talk to their need for crisis response or survival, your business is going to struggle. Your sales team are going to not meet their numbers, and you're going to really damage the relationship with those clients. And then the third piece of it is, what are you doing long-term, so that as you get in the door right now with whatever it is that's supporting that crisis response and survival mode, how then are you going to then come back up the value chain with your clients to help them recover? And eventually, hopefully, move back into growth. And hopefully by the end of this year, hopefully by December 2020, January 2021, hopefully we'll all be able to be seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, that will be moving through recovery and back into growth. But if you don't figure out that equation, it's going to be a really tough year for you.
I want to go to that, meet them where they are, because you've always been just fantastic at being able to bullet down. I know you've had conversations like this. Can you give us an example or tell us a story of a client or something you've experienced just in the last couple of weeks?
Yeah. So, a lot of folks out there, a lot of companies out there, they're typically offering services around leadership pipelines, or, invest in these HR services or these softwares that are, or marketing strategies that are all about growth. And right now, companies can't think about that at all. That's not where they are. So one of our clients, for example, is really jumping in with organizations around, how do they keep their call centers operating? How do they, what do they do if they don't have people in a location? They can't keep their operations running, but at the same time, they're not set up to have hundreds of people working from home. So really jumping in and figuring out, what are those new HR policies? What are the new protocols for that? How are they going to maintain quality, aside from obviously all the IT issues that come with that? But instead of talking to them about, let's empower your people and have a great place to work and make sure people have a career path. I mean, all of those things are on the back burner right now, and it's about keeping the lights on. So, but other people out there, we're watching it. We're watching the articles they put out. We're watching the webinars that they're hosting. And they're still trying to just convince people, hey, this is why you still need to focus on your future. This is why you need to focus. It would be like telling someone who doesn't have food, water, or shelter why they should focus on health and wellness and mindset, right? Like it's just crazy to do that. But you see it every single day. Just go on to LinkedIn, check out a webinar, and you'll watch people talk to corporate decision makers, mid-market companies at a completely wrong place in the entry point. Like, what is your on-ramp to a company? Well, your on-ramp to these companies has completely shifted and changed.
I know mine has. I normally do in-person experience, and now I have to look about how would I deliver that in a virtual way.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
still a great
the
offer.
cool thing, though, right, is more people are open to it. People
Yeah,
who love in person are kind of saying, well, I love in person, but I'm willing now, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Um, let's talk about sales, because this is where I really feel like things are shifting. I've had people that are delaying their decisions. I've had people that have basically said no to because of things that are going on, uncertainty. What's changing in the way we lead a sales organization?
I think the first thing, this is an adage that's been around for a long time, but a confused mind doesn't buy. And boy, are people confused right now. There's absolutely no playbook for what we have going on right now. So the first thing is, if you want to sell right now, you're going to have to invest more time helping the decision makers to triage and understand and get some clarity around what can they move forward on with a degree of certainty, really helping guide them to look, no matter what happens, you're still going to need X, right? But you have to understand that the horizon that they can see is much shorter than it was, right? So companies could look out 12 months, 18 months, 24 months with a degree of, there's not fog there. I can see where we're going. Now they're thinking, what's going to happen in 3 months? What's going to happen in 5 months? So you really have to shift what you're offering to a shorter runway, a closer horizon. That's number one. You've got to work with them to triage really what can they move forward on with a degree of certainty, because some things they legitimately can't move forward on. And that's, I think, as a former corporate decision maker, I used to personally get very, very frustrated, Jean, when we would be in a situation. One in particular that comes to mind is we were doing this merger of equals. That's sort of famous corporate speak. It was no merger of equals, right? We were being bought, but they were billing it as a merger of equals. And we would have salespeople come in and they would meet with me and they would really want to try to convince me that I could move forward on X, Y, or Z, even though we had this big merger that had a lot of uncertainty around it. Our state legislature was under an emergency session just to deal with our company. Our employees were getting tomatoes thrown at them. I mean, it was this crazy, crazy time. And salespeople just would not understand that I could not move forward on certain things. And so you don't want to do that to your prospects right now. You don't want to do it to your existing clients right now. You really want to sit and work with them to figure out what is reasonable for them to move forward on and what isn't. And to be honest with you, most business owners and most sales and marketing people, business development folks, aren't willing to do that. They just want to go through their slides, throw up or show up and throw up, as they say. They just kind of want to go through and they just kind of want to push the sales through. And honestly, you're really just asking to create a transactional relationship with that client if that's your approach.
Well, I know we could talk for hours about marketing and sales. It's something I hold dear, but I also want to kind of pivot a little bit into the leadership style. We were talking before we turned the recorder on. Your belief is it takes a little bit different style to really lead through this crisis. What do you mean by that?
Well, I think part of it comes from my professional background. So I worked in the energy space where I was heavily involved with the nuclear energy side of the business, and we would drill all the time on crisis response if we had a nuclear meltdown. And I also worked in the defense space where I worked with a lot of people who were veterans, retired military, 3-star admirals and things of that nature. And so I had a chance to really work with people, leaders who had been through crisis. They had been through leading on the battlefield. In fact, our executive vice president here at the corporate agent, he went to West Point. He was a captain in the Army. And so, even his leadership style, in our team, it really shows up. And when you're in more of a crisis situation, it's when you have to be much more decisive as a leader. You have to make decisions more quickly. You have to make them more decisively. And oftentimes you have a lot less consensus around you because frankly, people are scared to make a decision. They're scared to move forward. They don't want to make the wrong decision. In a lot of companies, no matter how much we talk about higher trust levels, you're still sort of penalized, if you will, if you make a bad decision. There's sort of a lot that comes back on you. And so people feel like they need to do more information gathering. They end up in an analysis paralysis right now. They feel like without certainty, they can't move forward. And that's the last thing that leaders can do right now. So many of the things that in an ideal world, as leaders, we like to make sure we get buy-in from everyone. Everyone's had a chance to, bring their thoughts to the table. When you're in sort of a battlefield situation, you can't do that. You as the leader have to take the information and the data that you have, ask for what you need, and then you have to make a decision and move forward. And what's interesting about that is most employees right now are going to respond really positively to that because they want a degree of certainty. So if their leader at the helm of the ship is like, well, I'm not sure if we should go this way or this way to avoid that iceberg, that's just creating a lot of fear and doubt in your people. So now is really the time to keep making decisive decisions, make them quickly, move forward on them. It's going to give your team a sense of purpose to be able to move forward with, a mark on the map to move toward. And if you have to come back in a few weeks and say, you know what, we're going to have to change gears again, then make that decision with certainty as well. But the last thing you want to do is inject more uncertainty into the workplace right now and let your team watch you waffle. That's not a good plan of action on a battlefield.
I am hearing back from my clients, a lot of teams are rallying in this situation. They're unsure. So maybe they're wanting to protect their job. So they're like really, I've noticed this within my own team. My clients are saying this. Are you noticing this across your client base?
Yes and no. We had a couple of clients, one in particular who shared a workplace tragedy. I won't go into the details because I don't, want to break any confidentiality, but a workplace tragedy that came up because the leaders actually didn't kind of check in with their people to really see how they were coping. And they were really trying to push everyone right into recovery mode without looking at, has everyone sort of processed where we are, taken a breath. So I think in some organizations, you're seeing this tremendous rallying. My hunch though on it, Jean, is that what I've noticed more than anything about this situation is that it is an ultimate amplifier, meaning whatever was there before, like if you had a marketing and a sales team that was already strong with high emotional intelligence and understanding how to meet clients where they are, that just got better. That just got amplified. If you have a work environment where people love where they're working and they're valued and they're asked for their opinions and they have an ability to make a difference, then that's getting amplified. And environments where people are maybe feeling like it's a command and control in a really negative, toxic way, that's getting more toxic, right? So I think it's important to understand whatever was already there before this crisis hit, it's all being amplified. So as a leader, you really have to be honest with, is there toxicity in our workplace right now? Or was there already a sort of a team environment, a great culture, and then we can bring that to the forefront? If not, then I think you do have to kind of step back and say, how can we shift it before we go pedal to the metal on this right now? But it's like the great amplifier, like I've never seen before.
I want to switch gears one final time as we wrap this up. You are leading a team, many of it virtual, but you are now homeschooling as well.
Yeah.
You're dealing with a lot of the same things we're dealing with, and you're making changes to your offers. How do you as a leader keep yourself balanced, keep your emotional energy, on the right place, and really find that grounding that you need to lead the team?
One is gratitude. There's some great benefits as from my perspective right now. I don't feel guilty about saying that. I'm off the road a lot now. So I'm home with my kids and my husband way more than I normally am because I do travel a lot to speak at conferences and meet with clients. So making dinner every night, being able to sleep in, actually, we don't have to get our kids off to school. I'm getting like an extra hour of sleep in the morning. It's like the most magnificent thing in the world. So really just kind of counting all of the things that are really great for me right now. That is a tremendous way at the end of the day to count those blessings that recharges me every night to go strong the next day. The second thing is really putting my focus on helping my clients right now and helping our community, doing everything that we can do to be a light for them, sort of a calming force for them. And because I move myself into that calming energy to help my clients, and I know you do this too, it calms you, right? So when you're putting the focus on helping others and not making it about you, there's sort of an instantaneous grounding impact of that. I think that's really important. And then the third is, thank God that I invested all these years in myself, in mindset, in working with consultants, in working with mindset experts. Like all of that is paying off now. And so really just having those tools of sort of truth and remembering that even in chaos, those universal laws don't go away. In fact, they bring order to our universe. Even when the universe feels completely out of control, those universal laws are never out of control. So I think for me, it's all of those things, from the basic taking care of myself and just really enjoying the moments I can enjoy right now, to being the best possible servant to my clients that I can be, and the leader at the same time, right? That sort of servant leadership. And then the other side of it is a little bit more woo-woo, that sort of spiritual work and universal laws. That's kind of, for me, what's creating a sense of calm.
Well, I appreciate you sharing that with us. Great insights today about sales and marketing and even leadership styles through this crisis. Angelique, thanks for sharing your wisdom with us and what you do for the corporate agent.
My pleasure.
Wow, I love this interview. Angelique and I go way back. We were able to catch up offline, and really wish you could have heard some of that stuff in there we talked about. I've known her for about 6 years. She helped me through some critical moments in my life, and I really wanted to say thank you to her. She may not be listening to this, but I really do admire what she's doing in the marketplace. And I also admire all of you leaders out there that are listening in. If you want to be a better leader through this crisis, then make sure that you keep tuning in to this podcast. I also want to remind you that the webinar that we have, if you want to sign up to be a better, stronger leader, to create the frontline leaders that your team deserves so that they can navigate through this crisis and beyond, just go to genehammett.com/webinar. Again, if you want to sign up and be a better leader through this crisis, go to genehammett.com/webinar. Absolutely free. Sign up now. That wraps up today's episode. If there's anything I can do for you to help you evolve as the leader you need to be, make sure you reach out to me, and I would love to help you. As always, lead with courage. I'll see you next time.